Today's video is going to be something a little different, kind of like a Q&A style. So I did a couple of live streams last week and I always get asked the same questions in them. So I wanted to sit down and put this together in a proper video for you. So let's get into it. Man, Thailand has changed so much. It's crazy. You know, when I came out here, I came in the middle of at the very beginning of all the lockdowns, and it was a very different place to what it is now. Actually, when I was planning my trip to move out here, there was no restrictions or anything in place. And then in the time from when I booked to the time that I actually arrived here, they put in all these things and I had to do quarantine and everything. So that was all good. I got through that. That was fine. But then coming to here sort of in those lockdowns and during all that time, it was a crazy experience. Bangkok was empty. There was like nobody here. It was crazy. I remember times I'd be walking around a train station and I wouldn't see anyone as far as I looked in every direction. And times walking up and down the street, you know, here in Bangkok along Sukhumvit Road, you've got those street stalls and vendors everywhere. None of them were there. It was a completely different place, having no tourism here. It's been fascinating to watch the transition of this place as it all started to reopen and tourism became more of a thing. You know, you would see restaurants getting new menus made up, the price of everything went up, and all of a sudden you couldn't get taxis easily. Whereas during that time, you used to be able to just jump in a taxi, tell them where you wanted to go, and they'd take you right away. The cost of living has definitely gone up here. You know, my apartment I got it for a steal right in the middle of all that. You know, I managed to negotiate a really good deal and my landlords haven't really put it up that much since then. But, you know, I look online now and the next cheapest apartment in the same building is more than double what mine is and what I'm paying now. So I was actually quite lucky in that sense to be able to come out here back then. The general cost for everything has gone up, you know, especially for shopping. If you wanted to buy clothes and stuff like that, that's all gone up considerably since tourism resumed. And like I mentioned, a lot of the restaurants in the touristy kind of areas, they'd all put their prices down, but they've all gone right back up. Right now we're coming into low season, which has been quite interesting. You know, there was a time just before in the high season at the beginning of the year, it was insane here. It was getting too busy and too touristy for my liking, you know, because when I lived here, when I first started living here, it was not like it is now with regards to tourism. And it can get a little frustrating as someone that lives here is being treated like a tourist all the time. Whereas I think the thing that I liked most back then was, you know, people realized that you lived here and you almost had a little bit more value here with the locals. Whereas now that it's much more of a high turnover with tourism, there are times you definitely feel like you're being treated like a tourist. One thing that I do miss about that time is it's completely selfish, but traveling around Thailand at that time was amazing. Everything was really cheap and quiet. There was no one anywhere. So, you know, I did boat rides on Krabi to all these little islands and we were the only people on the island. I visited major tourist destinations and there was no one there. So I got to do all that without the crowds, which was quite cool. But it was nice to see this place come alive too, because like the homelessness, the people struggling without work and without the tourism industry, it was very in your face and it was very apparent here. So it was nice to see this place sort of work its way back to where we are now. I think the biggest mistake people make when they move out here, you know, when you come here on holidays, it's a completely different experience to when you move here, and it needs to be treated as a different experience. So this is something that Sam went through, my mate just went through recently, and it's something, you know, I struggled with when I first moved abroad, not here to Thailand, but when I first moved to Korea. And that's separating the differences between being here on holidays and living here. You know, when you come here, all your previous experiences around like partying and going out and doing all this like non-stop action basically, and when you live here you need to kind of slow down a little bit. You definitely don't want to be going out drinking every night and partying, and it's so easy to get sucked into that because, you know, you'll meet so many people, and especially when you meet people that are here on holidays, because they'll be doing that all the time, and you want to go see your friends that are here, you want to go see some friends that are in this bar or work in this bar or manage a bar or whatever. So you're constantly surrounded by this party lifestyle, and you know, if you do this for too long, it turns into a lifestyle. So I think the biggest challenge is just sort of calming down, accepting that you live here and realizing you've got the time to do these things. You don't need to do everything in your first week. And I made this mistake when I first moved to Korea. I did the same. I was sort of action-packed for the first few weeks. I was going out all the time. I was spending way too much money. And then in time you realize, hey, I don't need to be doing all this right away if I plan to live here long term. There's going to be time for me to do all these things. Thankfully for me, when I moved here, I already knew this and I had this fresh in my mind from my trip to Korea, and that was a big mistake. I don't know, it was not a big mistake that I made, but it was definitely something I wish I would have done differently. So when I came out here, I was very conscious of that. I was very aware of those mistakes, and I worked really hard to not fall into that pattern. I think people also rush to create a life for themselves, so you don't need to find all your friends right away. You don't need to be going out and meeting tons of people right away. They will come in time, and if you just let that happen naturally, I think you'll get a much better experience. It can still definitely be cheap to live here. I mean, it's definitely cheaper than, I'm from Australia, from Sydney, and every time I go back there, I'm blown away at the price of everything. I bought a bottle of water last time for $5, whereas I got this for like 20 cents or 30 cents or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, the cost of general living here is really cheap. And once you learn, you know, if I live right in the middle of Bangkok, and if I go out to some of the restaurants that are in the touristy parts, you can pay a lot more. Whereas now, in living here for so long, I know all these great little local spots to go, and you pay, you know, a quarter the price or whatever it is. So living here can be really cheap. It can also be very expensive. You know, you can spend a lot if you're going out drinking and partying all the time. So this again comes down to, you know, keeping everything under control with your spending. I would say a good amount for people to live here if you want to move out at a base is probably $2,000 a month. That's a decent amount here. You can live on $1,000 a month if you want to. I've done a couple of videos on that. I'll leave them a link down in the description so you can see what the baseline is. I think the absolute baseline would be $1,000 a month. 2,000 is a much more comfortable life. Me personally, I'm spending around 3,000 to 4,000, and that's much more, say, a little bit more of an extravagant life. You know, I'm earning better money now, so I'm able to live a bit of a different lifestyle. So, you know, as an example, if I'm going down to Pattaya, I used to take the bus. I now take a car service. Same, a few nights a week, I'll go out and I want to go have like a really nice dinner and go eat somewhere and have like a cheese and wine platter or something like this. You know, these nicer things that cost more money, I'm able to do now, but these are absolutely not necessary things that you need to get by here. So yeah, I think 2,000 is an amount to live comfortably. 3,000 you can live very comfortably, and I'm sort of around 3 to 4, and that also includes quite a bit of travel as well. So first is rent, and that's going to depend on where you live. So I'll leave a couple of links down in the description for places that you can get an idea of how much rent costs. So to give an example, Sam is paying 6,000 baht a month in Pattaya. So that's kind of like a lower level, and then it goes all the way up. So you can check out online and get an idea of the prices. For me, electricity I pay every month, and that's around sort of 2,000 to 3,000 baht. It's always pretty consistent. I've got water, which is really cheap here. I think I pay around 100 baht, 150 baht a month for water. My phone is a really cheap one, so I pay 300 baht a month for that, and that's unlimited everything 5G. My home internet is also 300 baht, $10 a month for unlimited 5G internet at home. And then I've got insurance, which I pay $42 a month for. Something I'm always asked is, who do I use for insurance? So I personally use Safety Wing, and actually so do all of my friends. I started with them back during the pandemic. They're one of the cheapest around and definitely the best option for us. So back then insurance was compulsory, but that since ended, and I continue to stay with them. Thankfully, I haven't had to use them for a claim, but Dan actually did. He did twice, and he said great things about the service. You know, they were prompt for paying him. They had excellent communication, and that really sealed the deal. You know, I always thought getting money from an insurance company would be like getting blood from his stone, but he said it was really great service, and it was all really easy. Safety Wing just announced Nomad Health, which is a health insurance for remote workers and people living abroad. I'll leave a link for them down in the description below so you can check out their website, but they're available in 175 different countries. They've got coverage for up to $1.5 million and the ability to be able to choose your own doctor. So as I mentioned earlier, Dan used them and he said great things about their communication, and they paid him out promptly with no questions asked. All the links, all the information, everything you need to know is down in the description below. So check that out, check out Nomad Health, and stay safe when you're abroad. Moving to Thailand is actually surprisingly easy. I think the biggest concern people have with moving out here is just the whole visa thing. You know, I'm constantly asked every single day, like every single video I put out, people, what visa are you on? What visa are you on? So I'm on a business visa, but if you're moving out here and you want to be doing remote work or something like that, there's a new visa called the Smart Visa that's worth checking out. That's sort of targeted for digital nomads. Another good option if you want to live out here is to look at the education visa. That's what Dan was on a while back, and you know, if you're living here, you might as well put some time into learning Thai. And it's not like full time or anything like that. I think he just did like two-hour courses a week. Otherwise, if you want a more long-term one, look into the elite visa. I just want to say, I'm not at all a visa expert, so speak to a visa agent. They're the best people. You can reach out to them, you can email them. They'll have all the correct information for you, and they'll be really helpful because they want your business. If you do want to move out here and you're concerned about the whole visa thing, don't be, because there's tons of options. There's plenty of others that I don't really even know about, so speak to a visa agent. This is Thailand, and for the right price, anything can happen for you here. I've got a whole lot of travel coming up, which is really exciting, not just here around Thailand, but internationally as well. So before the end of the year, I'm going to go to China. I'll be off to South Korea, which I'm dying to get back there because I haven't been there since the start of all the pandemic and everything. I will also do a trip somewhere within Southeast Asia. I originally wanted to go to Cambodia because I haven't been there for a while, but been watching Dan's videos of him in Vietnam and it makes me miss there and want to visit Vietnam again. But I think something I'm really looking forward to is I'm buying a motorbike here in Thailand. So I've been actively looking. I've gone out and looked at a few. I haven't quite seen exactly the one I want. So I want a Honda Dash, which is a little two-stroke bike. I want to sort of modify it and restore it and do it up for myself. And then I'll be doing some trips around Thailand. So I'm not going to do like a big bike tour or anything like that, but I do want to take sort of slow trips and go visit some places because I've traveled through a lot of Thailand, but I haven't done much of it by myself. I've always been with people. So I would like to experience doing it by myself and having the freedom to just be able to jump on a bike and go explore these parts that I haven't seen yet and go revisit the places that I have been to, but try and have a different experience.